Is my car fixed yet? It's a Studebaker, the one with the little dog in the window that goes. For most people, that line might sound harmless, just another comedic moment. But for Carol Burnett, it was something entirely different. It came from a 1977 sketch that would go on to become one of the most powerful and painful performances of her career. The episode aired only once. It left audiences stunned, critics in awe, and even her own crew in tears. Awards followed. Praise poured in. Yet Burnett herself refused to ever watch it again. Not once in nearly 5 decades. Why? Because it wasn't just acting. It was real. Carol Burnett was born on April 26, 1933, in San Antonio. From the very beginning, her life was marked by instability and hardship. Both of her parents struggled with alcoholism, leaving them unable to properly care for her. Her father drifted from job to job, while her mother remained emotionally distant and unreliable. Eventually, both would die from alcohol-related illnesses. As a toddler, Burnett already understood abandonment. The people meant to nurture her instead left her fend for emotional survival in a world that felt unpredictable and cold. Everything changed when her maternal grandmother, Mabel White, stepped in. In 1940, the two moved to Hollywood, hoping for a better life. But there was no glamour waiting for them, only struggle. They lived in a cramped boarding house filled with people battling addiction, poverty, and mental illness. Their weekly income was just $20, barely enough to survive. Yet for the first time in her life, Burnett felt something she had never truly known before: safety. Her grandmother gave her unconditional love. And in that environment, Burnett began to create. To cope with the chaos around her, Burnett invented an imaginary twin sister named Karen. Karen was everything she felt she wasn't: confident, beautiful, carefree. Burnett would change her clothes, alter her hair, and fully embody this other persona. Remarkably, the illusion was so convincing that even the adults in the boarding house believed Karen was real. Looking back, it was more than a child's game. It was her first performance. At the same time, Saturday trips to the movies became sacred. For 25 cents, more than 10% of their weekly income, Burnett and her grandmother escaped into worlds filled with music, laughter, and beauty. For a few hours, life made sense. But reality always returned. They were so poor they sometimes had to steal toilet paper from theater bathrooms. It wasn't shame, it was survival. Even then, Burnett understood something deeper. She wasn't just hungry for food. She was hungry for a different life. One day in the theater, she heard Johnny Weissmuller deliver his famous Tarzan yell. Something about it struck her instantly. At home, she practiced it over and over again. Without realizing it, she was training her voice, building breath control and comedic timing. What started as imitation eventually became one of her signature comedic tools, delighting audiences years later. By the time she graduated high school, Burnett had a dream: to become a journalist. It was a way of honoring her mother's unrealized ambitions. She set her sights on UCLA, but there was a problem. She didn't have the $50 tuition. Just when it seemed like her dream might end before it began, something extraordinary happened. An anonymous stranger paid her tuition. No explanation, no conditions. It was the first of several moments in her life where kindness from strangers would change everything. At UCLA, Burnett initially pursued journalism, but a single theater class shifted her entire path. On stage, she felt alive in a way she never had before. She wasn't shy or invisible. She was bold, funny, and magnetic. She changed her major to theater. It was a risk, but it paid off. By the end of her freshman year, she was named the most promising newcomer in the program. For the first time, she believed she might not just survive life. She might actually shape it. In 1954, another stranger entered her life, this time a wealthy businessman. After hearing her dream of making it to Broadway, he offered her and her boyfriend, Don Soroyan, $1,000 each to move to New York. He had only 3 rules. Never reveal his name. Use the money only for the journey. Pay it forward someday. Burnett accepted. With $2,000 in a dream, she headed to New York City, a place she had never even visited before. The reality was harsh. Money disappeared quickly. She struggled to find work and nearly gave up. At her lowest point, she broke down while calling home, ready to return. Then something strange happened. She heard on the radio that a hurricane named Carol was approaching. She took it as a sign, and she stayed. Burnett eventually found her footing at the rehearsal club, a boarding house for aspiring actresses. Life was cramped and difficult, but it was filled with energy and ambition. Her big break came from an unlikely source, a comedic song about politician John Foster Dulles. The song was absurd, but Burnett's performance made it unforgettable. Soon, she was appearing on major television programs like The Ed Sullivan Show, where she captivated audiences nationwide. Then came her defining stage role in Once Upon a Mattress, playing Princess Winifred. She brought a new kind of comedic energy to Broadway, bold, awkward, and completely original. The show became a hit. Burnett had arrived. In 1967, Burnett launched the Carol Burnett Show, a groundbreaking variety series that ran for 11 seasons. It drew nearly 30 million viewers weekly and won 25 Emmy Awards. More importantly, it changed television. At a time when the industry was dominated by men, Burnett became one of the first women to lead a major comedy show. Her work paved the way for generations of female comedians. The show blended scripted sketches with improvisation, often leading to unforgettable moments, especially with co-stars like Tim Conway and Harvey Korman, whose unpredictable performances frequently caused the cast to break character on air. It was joyful, chaotic, and real. But beneath the laughter, Burnett carried deep emotional scars. In 1977, Burnett performed a sketch that changed everything. Her character, Eunice Higgins, was part of a recurring series called The Family. Usually comedic, this particular sketch took a darker turn. There were no jokes, no exaggeration, just pain. Eunice dreams of becoming a star, only to be mocked and humiliated on a talent show. The scene ends with her standing alone, devastated, as the camera slowly pulls away. No laughter, no music, just silence. The studio crew was in tears. Viewers at home were shaken. Critics called it brilliant, but Burnett couldn't handle it, because Eunice wasn't just a character. She was a reflection of Burnett's own life. The rejection, the poverty, the longing to be seen. It was too real, she later admitted. And so, she never watched it again. While her career soared, Burnett's personal life was filled with heartbreak. Her first marriage to Don Soroyan ended under the strain of loss, depression, and alcoholism. Her second marriage to producer Joe Hamilton brought success, but also emotional distance, eventually ending in divorce. Then came her greatest challenge, her daughter Carrie's addiction. At just 13 years old, Carrie began using drugs. Over the next several years, Burnett fought desperately to save her, sending her to rehab, making painful decisions, and enduring periods of estrangement. At one point, they didn't speak for over a year. Burnett later said, "You have to love them enough to let them hate you." Carrie eventually recovered and went on to build her own acting career. The two grew close again, even collaborating creatively. But tragedy struck in 2002 when Carrie died of cancer at just 38. It was one of the deepest losses of Burnett's life. Despite everything, Burnett never stopped working. Decades after her early success, she continued to surprise audiences. In Better Call Saul, she delivered a chilling performance as Marion, a seemingly harmless elderly woman who ultimately exposes the show's central character. Even in her late 80s, her presence commanded attention. She also appeared in Palm Royale, earning recognition as one of the oldest Emmy nominees in history. Her talent hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened. Carol Burnett's life is not just a story of success. It's a story of survival, resilience, and transformation. She turned pain into performance. She turned hardship into humor. And when the moment called for it, she showed the world that comedy and tragedy are often separated by the thinnest line. That 1977 sketch remains one of the most powerful moments in television history. Not because it was funny, but because it was honest. And for Burnett, that honesty came at a cost. One she chose never to revisit. If you want, I can also tighten it into a YouTube script format. Add dramatic narration cues. or turn it into a storytelling voiceover with pacing marks.